Monster Hunter Wilds weapons ranked by fun. Number 14, Heavy Bowgun. Going full Rambo mode with Wyvern Heart might make this weapon cooler than the light bowguns, and the counter shot is a cool idea too, which is why I almost put it above the light bowguns, but it becomes really hard to use in the endgame due to the lack of mobility, making it more frustrating than fun. Heck, it borders on unusable with how fast the monsters have become. I actually feel like this weapon needs a buff, as it doesn't feel like it gets enough in return for sacrificing that much mobility. I don't think it'll happen though, as Capcom is always afraid that this one becomes OP, and rightfully so, as it has happened several times in the past already.
You were amazing out there.
Number 13, Light Bowgun. If the weapons were ranked based on how effective they were, then Light Bowgun will probably score higher, but since I'm ranking based on fun, it's going to have to take 13th place. This weapon becomes stale rather fast, as you're kinda just running around and shooting. It also feels like all bowguns are less fun to play simply because you don't have to dodge as much, as you can simply just keep your distance, so walking is often enough to avoid getting hit, especially with light bowguns. Number 12, Hunting Horn. I don't think this weapon is for me. I do play alone a lot, so instantly half of its use kind of flies out the window most of the time. But I do have to say that it received a lot of good changes, which is why it now gets a better ranking than the bowguns. The echo bubbles on the ground, the AoE buffs, are really cool. It even has a counter now that also looks pretty sweet, and the wound attack allows you to play up to 5 notes. Combine this with smoother animations and you can see why it went up quite a lot. I do think that the Hunting Horn is still an acquired taste, and it's definitely not for everyone, which is why it's in 12th place. Number 11, Charge Blade. I like that they made the pizza cutter part of the base moveset, and as with all other weapons that can guard, it gained the perfect guard, which is nice. But other than that, it didn't really gain much compared to previous titles and compared to other weapons in Monster Hunter Wilds. So the only way that I can see people liking this weapon is if they end up investing a lot of time and using the guard points. I don't mind a weapon being a little more complicated, but this weapon seems to be a bit more complicated just for the sake of being more complicated, and the fun factor therefore suffers because of it, as going through the motions of charging and discharging gets stale rather fast, and with the speed of the monsters being so high, I feel like I end up fighting the weapon a bit too much, as I would only like to fight the monsters. Number 10, Insect Glaive. Getting your extracts is a bigger part of your core loop, as you can now spend them on the Rising Spiral Slash, if I remember the name correctly. And even though this loop of getting buffs and spending them does get a little repetitive over time, you still look cool doing it, and you can just decide to fly around whenever you feel like it. The main reason it gets 10th place is because your moveset without the buffs is pretty much unusable, reducing the fun factor, as sometimes this simply happens at the wrong moment. I don't want to spend my time gathering buffs when a monster is down. I wouldn't mind slightly lower damage though, but it's a little more than just less damage. Number 9, Sword and Shield. Sword and Shield took a hit compared to my last ranking by fun video. The only thing better than before is the shield. It's now actually viable by using perfect guard. Other than that, it's a lot less interesting. Sword and Shield was always known to have low commitment animations, but combine that with focus mode and you can literally walk around while attacking in any direction, making this weapon so easy to play that it's less interesting than before. The things that made it stand out, like using items with your weapon out and doing jump attacks going up ledges, don't do enough to set it apart anymore, as jump attacks are more common and quick sheet makes using items with your weapon out kinda obsolete. Other than the slide attack and obviously the wound attacks that all weapons get, this weapon got nothing new, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but certainly doesn't help. Number 8, the Hammer. They made a lot of good changes to this weapon. Dodging while charging with iframes is the main one, but just the fact that you feel a lot more mobile while attacking is great, and it even gets a counter, although the water strike was still better in my opinion, as it simply came out faster. But I suppose that has to do with balancing. Boinking heads has never been more satisfying with the mighty charge, and it finally appears to be the KO king, as the bowguns aren't as effective anymore. Number 7, Greatsword. Half of the fun with Greatsword was aiming your charges just right, but with the focus mode this has become so easy that it's kinda taking away from its skill ceiling. It does get a nice counter though, which is actually very accessible, and for some reason guarding with a Greatsword feels more badass than guarding with a lance. And since guarding is easier to do and perfect guard is available on all weapons that can block, even guard builds are fun to play. Overall it's got some nice changes and I really like the focus and mount attacks. It's also still the best wake up weapon, which is satisfying to do, and since crit draw is back to 100% crit, even hit and run builds are fun to play. Number 6, Lance. They slowed it down a lot, gave a perfect guard and new follow-up moves, but there is still no good move that you can do when the monster is down, and the weapon moves around a lot when doing basic combos, making it harder to block follow-up attacks without constantly going into power guard. Combine this with the fact that there are 5 other weapons that can now also perfect guard, and the fact that all guard skills can only be slotted into weapon slots, and all of a sudden you see all of its flaws. When played optimal, however, it gets a lot better. Double thrusting through attacks is fun and makes the weapon a lot more efficient. You just need to know all of the moves of all of the monsters, making it less fun for casuals and perhaps more fun for pros. It just isn't quite in the perfect spot yet, and personally I don't like the controls as much in Wilds. Number 5. Switch X. It scores quite a bit higher. Somehow it got an even more fluid moveset, and it's got 2 counters. You can now explode the weapon twice and both modes are usable. Managing the 3 different gauges is the only reason it doesn't score any higher, but I do think that this is probably the best Switch X that we've had. Pair it with some evasion skills and you can counter and dodge through most moves. It's really cool. Number 4. Gun Lance. Why pick the Lance if you can pick the Gun Lance is what a lot of people said on my Why Nobody Plays Lance video. And at first I thought that it was weird, as in my eyes these were 2 very different feeling weapons. In Monster Hunter Wilds, however, the Gun Lance does actually feel a lot like a better Lance, in most ways. It's only lacking counters really if we're gonna compare. You even have something other than poke 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 when the monster is down. You also no longer have to rely on evasion skills, as your guard comes out a lot faster, and exploding monsters, especially sleeping ones, will always be fun. It gained many good changes, and I would now also consider this weapon no longer unpopular, which is kinda crazy as it was very unpopular not too long ago. I have a whole separate video about this weapon on my channel if you want to know more. Number 3. Longsword. As good as it is, it's starting to get stale, but countering is always fun somehow, and the low armor skill requirement made it so that I could run around swapping between different elemental longswords without wondering if I missed any skills, which was rather nice. It did drop 1 spot to 3rd place compared to Sunbreak, as the animation commitment is a bit bigger. Other than that, I don't think it needs much explaining. You feel pretty badass wielding a longsword. Number 2. Dual Blades. It has some of the most satisfying dodges in the game, and the dodges also deal damage. Sharpness is not an issue in this game, as its consumption has been reduced in general. Stamina consumption is reduced even further when swapping to Archdemon mode, and stamina recovery in general is faster in this game. As a result, Dual Blades is still in a solid spot. All it missed is the skill where if you dodge through attacks you gain sharpness, but a similar skill can be obtained through some Sergio's gear. It's simple, effective and fun. Number 1. Bow. It got infinite coatings, a satisfying dodge move that regenerates stamina, a jump that allows you to move around easier that doesn't use any stamina, and the best focus attack in the game. The bow easily got the best changes in Monster Hunter Wilds, and these just make it a lot of fun to play. They also made it easier to fight the faster monsters with the tracking arrows, so those are not nearly as annoying as before. It no longer feels super easy to be effective due to the timed dodge required for stamina management. I actually think that this weapon is a bit underrated. I think the reason it's underrated is because people consider it a ranged weapon when it really fights more like a melee weapon. So perhaps give it another try. Please keep in mind that a lot of this list is personal preference. Feel free to share your list in the comments, and with that said, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and thanks for watching.